Gusky, PhD, is with us right here at Night Talk. She's a consumer marketing analyst and also professor at Duquesne University. And in tribute of the Olympic Games, which we'll discuss for our first of two segments, Ms. Gusky is wearing something that we just can't quite figure out.
It's gold, Alice, because I won the gold. Yeah.
You went with the gold?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
Well, good for you. You look lovely. You look great.
Thank you.
We were going to do this last week. Some things happened. I'm so happy you're able to make it this week.
I'm happy to be here, too. This is probably even more appropriate to be here now since the Olympics are winding down and more medals we've won and more ads we've been able to watch. It's exciting. I love the Olympics. Are you watching them a lot? I'm like addicted to them.
I'm not addicted to them. I will confess this, and maybe you could talk about what this means from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
The opening night or two, we were sitting around as a family, and I was this close to picking up the phone and call my brother Henry and saying, "This doesn't do it for me anymore, man."
Wow.
It just doesn't do it. And we grew up middle of the night, Sapporo, Japan, you know, as a kid to watch live coverage on grainy television. Right when I was ready to do that, my one son, young teenager, turns around and says something about what looks like extreme game stuff to me.
Right, right.
And his brother pulls up and he brings something out to eat and he says something. And then the older brother comes in and all of a sudden I put the phone down and decided to watch it through their eyes. And all of a sudden it became compelling again.
Of course, because they're going after a younger demographic. They're going after, like you said, the extreme sports, the snowboarding, all the fun things that were added this year or just a few years ago. And so it brings it alive to the young athletes, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I didn't want my initial perspective, or the one that I was about to act upon, to get in the way of what they would see and feel.
Right.
You know, because let them do it on their own. And they dug it. They really have dug it. And this morning everybody had a day off, so maybe there's a little Czechoslovakian hockey with Jaromir Jagr on. I mean, you can't miss it. NBC, if you haven't noticed, has the Sochi games, including Channel 11. You stumbled across things on the way in here.
Of course you do.
But talk about these advertisers. They spent $1 billion on this stuff.
They spent $900 million total, so close to $1 billion. And when you compare it to the Super Bowl ads, you've got 11,000 ads being run over these couple of weeks, as compared to the Super Bowl we know was couple dozen, maybe 40, 48, something like that. And the Super Bowl ads the advertisers spent $4 million, as compared to now, it's a measly bargain of $100,000. So it's a different picture because you've got people that aren't just watching it for the ads and aren't just watching it in a set time period of a couple hours. It's spread over several weeks. However, that builds the momentum and the excitement because people are watching the ice dancing and they're watching, the slalom, and they're watching all these great events, and a lot of these events go over a period of time, so it's almost like a soap opera. And NBC has done it very well. They talk about the individuals, they talk about the athletes, they talk about their history, they talk about how they've trained, and so it's like adds the personality as well.
Oh, well, sure, they have to add that theme into it because the games are like 12 hours away. I mean, in part. I mean, they humanize the athletes, who basically, in many respects, are robotic, and they make them more human. And I think that adds an element that we can connect to.
Do you think they're really robotic?
Some of these are robots.
I think they're everybody's a hero in a lot of ways, because a lot of these athletes, like the two that won the ice dancing last night, they've been together for 16 years. They got together when they were little kids, and they skated, and their moms were there. And I mean, it's such a human element and so emotional, and you really root for them. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm watching the games, whatever it is, I root for whatever country, because I don't want them to mess up, because these athletes have contributed their whole lives for years and years.
Sure.
And you want everybody to do their best.
This may be unfair to ask you because it's not something we talked about talking about. But I could go upstairs right now and probably get a whole bunch of demographics. I could find out who's watching, everything. Do you see the games as having a lean male, female?
Yeah, they're leaning toward female and older female. Interesting. So even though the extreme sports may go after your children, in reality, it's an older, like the Super Bowl, everybody watches it. You've got millions, hundreds of millions of people watching it. But with the Olympics, it's more geared toward middle-aged to older women. So if you look at the ads and the commercials, you can sort of see that too. My favorite commercial is the Procter & Gamble one, the P&G one, where it's the moms, and it's called pick them back up. And, you know, it really rips at your heart. And if you go online and watch it, it's a 4-minute actual video. But when they're showing it during the games, they'll focus on ice skating or hockey or skiing or something. But it's so cool because you see these moms who are the unsung heroes behind the scenes. And they are helping their daughters and sons to become these athletes. And it's phenomenal. So who's it geared toward? Demographics like myself.
Okay, when we talk about the ads and we talk about the messaging, you just said something interesting because there's a longer version available on another platform.
Right, correct.
Every NBC property is carrying some form or the other, something from the Olympics. So there's a lot on the television, there's obviously a lot online. There's also the entire world. So, I mean, I know that the world has interest in the Super Bowl, but this is the whole world.
This is global.
And so I suspect that in some respects supports the idea of spending about $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly. And I should say that the $900 million that's spent is U.S. advertising. So if you
that's just the United States.
Yeah, that's just the U.S. So globally, you're looking at several billion probably because, you know, everyone else, it's being shown across the world. But it's so exciting because, you know, what the advertisers are attempting to do is associate their product or their brand with this image, we're winners, we win the gold. And so they're supporting the USA, they're supporting the athletes, and they're suggesting we're a product that is very patriotic and a product that's on the winning end. So, I mean, that's all win-win-win.
I'm hearing a lot from you that's based on emotion.
It's all emotion. It's very emotional. But keep in mind, when you watch the Super Bowl ads, they were funny, they were humorous, slapstick, clever, some bordering on vulgar. And when you've got these ads, they're emotional. They are like, you know, they get you revved up. They get you motivated to do whatever you're going to do. And so, I mean, that's a good thing. And a lot of patriotism, too.
I would say, certainly. I would, I don't know if I've mentioned this in our conversation, but I probably can go upstairs right now and find out some information on the impact of the fact that we've got this long delay. I wouldn't ask you to be intimately knowledgeable on what that
9
is.
hours
But
ahead,
I will tell you that I saw a headline today that I didn't look at that talked about whether the spoiler alert thing is gone, that no one really cares. They're going to watch it in any ways where they can.
Alice, with the social media, there's no spoiler effect anymore because everybody knows ahead of time what's happening. And they don't care. Like the Super Bowl, the ads were leaked. The Olympics ads, they've been online, so you can watch them if you would like. And so it's just a matter of people want to watch it anyway. I mean, quite a few number of people, especially in Pittsburgh. I heard we had the biggest market watching the game of the U.S. on Saturday morning.
I agree. I saw the same thing. What's amazing to me is that most of these sports, though, fall into categories that 95% of people would never stop for any other time than each 4 years. That's amazing to me.
It is so cool because the whole world comes together and you're watching these. It's just amazing. You want everybody to do well, and it's the energy that happens, and it's the patriotism, and you add all that stuff together. And like you said, social media has become a big part of it now.
There's no question. So I would say to you this, ladies and gentlemen, if I would try to put together a segue, I cannot get any better than to go from the health and vibrancy of the Olympic Games to cigarette smoking. That's a perfect segue. So let's go. We'll do it in 2 minutes. Look, the world's largest lighter. All right, welcome back to Night Talk. I'm Ellis Cannon. Audrey Guskey's here. Audrey, so CVS has 7,600 stores, and they come out a couple of weeks ago and say we're willing to lose $2 billion a year by not using the torch and cigarettes. We're not going to sell them anymore. They give a time frame to roll this out. What were your thoughts?
Well, interesting. I mean, $2 billion sounds like a lot of money, but in reality, their sales are $125 billion, so it's less than 2%. When you look at all the retailers that are selling cigarettes, they only have about 4% of the market. So a lot of times when people are looking for cigarettes, they're now no longer going to a pharmacy. They would be going to a convenience store, maybe like the dollar store or Family Dollar or something like that, which I find interesting.
Like a Kogo's or something.
Yeah. Now, convenience stores, yeah. You know, at first I thought, wow, this is phenomenal. They are a healthcare provider. They're selling drugs, legal drugs, and they're selling products to help us feel better and be fit. And so the reality is they should have banned it a long time ago because a drugstore pharmacy should not be selling products that are really harmful to us.
You make an interesting point along the way, about three. One is this, it looks like it's a drop in the bucket. That's one.
Right.
Two, you make a very interesting point that people don't generally buy their cigarettes there.
Right.
But I think it's a smart move because I think it plays into they're gambling a little for a big win, whether it be under the Affordable Care Act, whether it be seen as a medical service provider of some sorts. That's where the real win is.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, I think it's brilliant.
When you look at all the media coverage that they've been receiving, us talking about it tonight, it was all positive. No one said, CVS, you should not have stopped this. No one really said, this is wrong for you to do. Everyone was in support of them. So now the other pharmacies, such as Caremark or my favorite, Rite Aid, what are they going to do? They're going to have to follow suit.
Walmart says they're going to look at it.
They all have to do it now. So, I mean, it's a good thing. They set the tone, and it's sort of like a social norm. And a lot of studies have found that if it comes from the business themselves, from corporation, as compared to a government regulation, government saying stop selling it, it's more powerful and more potent and tends to work. Also, they found that cigarette displays, so you're at Rite Aid or you're at CVS and you would see cigarettes behind the store, behind the counter, well, you may be more likely and attracted to it, especially young people. So it's that almost, at first I thought, well, is it really going to decrease cigarette smoking? But from the research that I did before we've done the show, it's yeah, if you don't see it, then, you're more likely not to smoke or not to smoke as much. That's positive.
I think this. Again, I think their big win is going to far outdistance $2 billion if it works right.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to be able to work out deals with health insurers.
Absolutely.
And when we start talking about that in hospitals,
right,
and be able to legitimately say, hey, this is what we've done, and we were the first ones out of the box to do this. I like CVS. My wife has sort of scratched her head as to why I dig it so much. Here's a marketing phrase. They're sticky. They stick to you.
Oh, I love that word, sticky.
But they're sticky.
You are such a marketer, Ellis.
Thank you,
I didn't even know you knew that.
They're sticky. They create just enough, but it's not overbearing.
Yeah.
They make it easy, but they stay out there and they connect with you.
They connect, absolutely.
And I like that. And I think right now the president says it's it's a big example. This is something that's going to help.
Of course, he smokes.
Well, they call him a former smoker, but let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I think he probably still puffs on.
Yeah, I did too.
Nobody in that position
puffs on something, but we're not going there.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's not.
But if you look at the statistics, 1 out of 5 Americans are still smoking. Back in the 70s, it was 40%. Now it's 20%. That's still high. And 42 million of these people that are smoking want to quit. So this is all the more incentive for them to quit. Do you remember when we were growing up, they would have cigarette commercials on TV?
Of course.
And then like any movie, from the 30s and 40s, they're all Disney movies, they're smoking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I remember being in airplanes where you couldn't see the front of the plane.
Yeah, right.
And my dad did his best to contribute to that.
And some of the commercials from the magazine ads from way back, Santa's smoking. Or doctors are recommending this cigarette.
Right.
So, it's a lot of our viewers that are watching this don't recognize how, it was really built into American society.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a cool thing to do, and now it's not.
I mean, we had a Camel smoking for the kids. Santa back in the day.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned something before that. Doggone it. I mean,
was it doctors recommending
Doctors, no, before that. It was funny you said it, because I remembered this. Oh, it was on the Marlboro Man died.
Yeah, he died of lung cancer.
And
of course
he turned on it. He said, guys, you shouldn't do this.
Right.
But I mean, do you remember how rugged, how good looking this guy was? He was so prominent. He was on television.
Yeah.
He was in all the print ads. He was everywhere. That's all we had back then.
Yeah, and every cigarette had their own image and brand. Women smoked this one, guys smoked this one, older people smoked this one. But it's a very positive thing. And obviously everybody Cancer Society, everybody's supporting the CVS, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it happening. But when you look at $107 billion in sales, in cigarette and tobacco sales every year.
How much?
107 billion.
Yeah.
And advertising, they're spending like about, 8 billion with a B. So, that's still quite a chunk of
But when we're spending about 130 billion just on treatment, anything that could bring that down might be a good idea.
Exactly.
All right, I got 30 seconds to go. As you point out, we still have over 40 million Americans to work on. But for that matter, the ones that I am increasingly less sympathetic about are kids. I'll be perfectly honest with you.
Well,
and I don't mean like 9-year-olds. I'm talking about if you're 25 or 30 years old, you know the rules.
You should know.
Do it.
And a lot of my students and still smoke, which is a bad thing. And I have to always say goodnight to my students. Because, Ellis, secret, they get extra credit for watching me. They're having a test on Thursday.
You're demanding. You are
So if you paid close attention, you know what the answers are. And I have to say, Jake and Luke, good night, my grandsons, who I love dearly.
We'll come back with our closing statement in 2 minutes.